Here we go. Welcome to LDC Now Episode V, aka Vicious Vixen. We are established by and for the Linux Distro Community and supporters of free open source software. Don't forget to interface with our magnificent mothership at www.linuxdistrocommunity.com, chat with us on IRC, join us on the forums, or shoot at us on game nights. It's about damn time for LDC Now, and Irish, take it away.
Thanks a lot, guys. We have an awesome show for you. We're going to talk about our app pick, which is going to be Clementine. We have a few questions done by a Linux newbie, so we're going to be able to answer that. And then in our segment, we're going to talk about text editors like Vim, Nano, and Emacs, the differences between that. And then our big thing is going to be an OpenSUSE review. So it's going to be an awesome show.
Yeah, let's also say, too, that we were also going to talk about, for our newbie corner, besides the talking to the new user, some tips and tricks for users on Ubuntu.
That should be, it's going to be quite informative for sure. How you guys doing today?
Good. It's good to be back after the weekend of holidays, or the week of holidays.
I missed you guys, but I hate mornings.
Thanks, man.
There was so much that I really wanted to talk about in the past couple weeks that we were doing the show that I was like, stuff happens and you're mad because you can't talk about it on the show. But hey, we're here. We got a lot to discuss.
Yeah, I think it's good too because we have quite a bit of information. So we might put this up in 2 separate videos as well, depending on how much content there is to air. How was your vacation there, Irish?
It was good. I had a nice little venture in Gentoo Land, but decided to head back to the Arch Plains.
Them binaries, man, them binaries.
That's right.
God bless the binaries. As for my turkey day, I drank beer, I ate, I slept. I was forced to hang out with my family and relatives, and so I ate, drank, and slept, and I waited for it to be quickly over.
I had a tasty Thanksgiving there.
I think I was hammered most of Thanksgiving.
It's not a bad way to spend it, I guess.
No, especially if you have, family that you're not too excited to spend time with.
Isn't that what we're supposed to do on holidays? Just kind of go see our families and wonder why we're doing it sometimes?
Yeah, but, with Christmas you get the eggnog, so at least that can be fun.
Put some wild turkey in the eggnog and you'll be good to go. And Irish, I hear you were forced to hang out with your in-laws.
I wouldn't say forced, but I just had a few hours with the in-laws, and that was it, so I didn't really have to do an entire day.
The way you say it, though, like a few hours with the in-laws, dun dun dun.
Well, I'm glad you survived it anyway.
Yeah, all 3 of us survived, at least the first part of the holidays.
So I'm really interested to hear about this Clementine app pick today. What do we got for it?
Well, to be honest, this was like my very first thing that I discovered when I moved over to Linux. I was looking for when I was on Windows, I had MP or Winamp as my music player, and I wanted something similar to that on Windows, or on Linux, excuse me, and I discovered Clementine. It is very close to Winamp, in my opinions, where you can have different playlists and have your entire library all at once.
But also, the great thing about Clementine, which is one of my favorite all-time applications. The great thing about it is that you can have a massive library, but if you just want to slap in some MP3s and play them on the fly, you can. And it's got all the great shuffle features, repeat, and the little meters that show. And it's just a great app, killer application.
It really.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Morning.
Considering I've never actually used Clementine, but I was a big fan of Winamp back on my Windows days. Is there the same separate? I might have a playlist little window where I could add and remove files. I have the main console window. Are there skins? Are there themes for this Clementine? For people like me that want to mess with a bunch of stuff?
Not exactly. It doesn't have really the look of Winamp. It just has kind of Winamp-like features. But it's different in the way that there's so much to it. I mean, you can listen to streams, internet streams. You can listen to Last FM. You can listen to Soma FM and different things. It just has a lot to it, but it's basically just one interface, as far as I know.
All right.
Yeah, you can have different playlists, and it's in tabbed form, like in a web browser, and then you can remove and say, hey, I don't want this playlist and that, but I'm sure you could probably do different, you can get the GUI interface to look different.
I mean, the other thing, too, is what are some features that Clementine would have over something that I might use, like Banshee or Rhythmbox?
I have not, played around with Banshee nor with Rhythmbox, so I don't know what features they have. But one of the best features that I can do is that it can play in the background. So you can close out the GUI and it will still run, and then you can still control it from a little icon in your system tray.
Oh, all right.
But also, it kind of reminds me of a very light Amarok. If you guys remember Amarok on KDE, it shows you the album art. You can install little plugins for lyrics if you want to sing along. I don't do that personally, but if you do that, that's cool. It's just a great little player that really does everything you want to do and way more. And I haven't really delved into the settings of the preferences and such, but really a great application though.
Cool. Actually, so it's lightweight, you're saying, too?
Yes.
Oh, very lightweight, yes.
That's definitely something it has over Banshee and Rhythmbox then. Both of those guys were pretty heavy.
There is a great video by Nixie Pixel. She just does does all the features of Clementine. We can put the link to her video in the description of this one if anyone's interested.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool, actually.
So that is our app pick for this week. It is a very lightweight music player, and it has a lot of great features and stuff.
I mean, the only thing I didn't get to ask during the little review of the app pick was if we know it does videos too, or do I need a separate thing like VLC to do my videos and DVDs?
To my knowledge, I don't think it does videos. I've never tried, but I'd be really surprised if it did videos, but that'd be pretty awesome. But to my knowledge, I don't believe so.
No, I don't think it does either. But it can do if you're really big into podcasts like I am, you can stream some podcasts and stuff like that from the little fruit.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's actually one I might have to look into, being that I use Amarok right now and like the lightweight ones. That's definitely one that I'll be checking out pretty soon.
What's next on the agenda here?
Well, it looks like our tips and tricks is next. So we decided to do Ubuntu since there's so many derivatives based off of Ubuntu. So do you guys have any cool tips and tricks for Ubuntu?
Well, I was going to throw in that when it came, the same it was for me using GNOME, have a GNOME tweak. Unity, if you're using stock Ubuntu, Unity has this great tool, Unity Tweak, which does a lot of cool settings that it put them all in one little place and make it easy to get done. I really like Unity Tweak a lot.
Yeah, when I was on, played around with Ubuntu, I definitely used Unity Tweak because you can tweak that sidebar that's in the Unity uh, panel and everything, and it is nicely done. Just it really does feel much like GNOME Tweak tool.
Yeah, I definitely feel like if I'm going to be using Unity or I want to have that tweak tool, I think it's awesome. It makes a lot. Puts everything in one place. I don't have to fuss around with a lot of stuff. I can open one tool and really adjust most of the stuff that I want to adjust that I can't adjust through the regular settings panel.
I think also the scopes is very important, and the little add-ons that you can find for Ubuntu, whether for your particular app, whether it's a sort of note-taking application or something else, that you can sort of dock to that and hit that if that's your favorite application. I think there's not too many people that actually do that, but you can set that up like it's really a dock and run all your favorite applications from there and lock it in.
Yeah, it's really cool. There's also there's videos, but we can do a video on doing this. But if there's an application that doesn't have one of those icon buttons on the side, you can make one yourself and just put it into the side panel like anyone else, like any other application.
Yeah, I definitely also really want to bring up, not to get too into it, because we could talk for hours about the heads-up display, but that's definitely one thing that if I'm using Unity and Ubuntu especially, I really like having the heads-up display. I think it's an awesome feature for Unity.
Yeah, it's a very powerful feature, especially if you have the scopes enabled, that you just type in, if you wanted a new HDD or a new hard drive, you just type HDD and it can go out to Amazon, it can go out to anywhere on the internet just to search for that particular word.
And speaking of the Amazon thing, it's nice that you can turn off the Amazon search thing as well. I think that's a good feature.
God, yes, man. The thing is that in my browser, I use stuff like NoScript. I use this is a great new app called Policeman. It's kind of like NoScript, and I want to really see what's really going on with my browser, what the connections are being made. And so if I'm using Ubuntu, I don't want some sort of invisible nebulous connections being made to Amazon on my behalf. I think if you're into that, that's cool, but if not, yeah, you can definitely turn that off. I think as well as the dock and things as well. You guys remember Synapse? We just pressed I think it was like a command and space, and it would open up and you type some stuff in and it would do things on your behalf. I think Ubuntu is going in a great direction with the HUD, with all that.
I was going to say one other really cool thing about Unity, if we're all set on the heads-up display, was the side panel, that same thing that appears over GNOME. I can't know what it's called, system tray or whatever. There's a lot of options for a lot of different features in that little panel to check out.
Yeah, they have definitely did the spit and polish on the latest Unity for sure. But there's also apt-get, which is our package manager. Do you guys have any tips and tricks on that? Go ahead.
Sorry, it's been so long since I've used Ubuntu, so it's kind of hard for me to kind of think it up. But I have to say that a great place to go if you're interested in themes and icons is a place called noobslab.com, and you can get all that there, and they have all the PPAs and such.
Oh, that's pretty. Yeah, I definitely have found with my MacBook running Ubuntu, that upgrade is one of my favorite features. Being somebody who was on Arch for so long and using Pac-Man, I think that apt-get upgrade is one of my favorite features in general. Just to be able to have that same one command, replace all the old packages, make it easy for me. I think that's one of the best things for me about apt-get.
Yes, and especially once what is it, 1504 comes out, you can do a dist upgrade, and you can upgrade from 14.10 to 1504 just on your terminal, and you don't have to use any GUIs if you don't want to. But another cool feature that I don't think too many people know about is a program called Aptitude. It's pretty much where apt-get gets its stuff, but it's got more of a GUI type of feel to it, and then you can search for packages very similarly to like the Arch user repository, where you just type in a like a keyword and you can search for everything that has those letters in them.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a software repository, but at the same time you can do a lot of work on different things where you can sort of downgrade applications or upgrade applications and do good maintenance on those applications. That is a great application.
Yeah, it is. When I ran Ubuntu server on a spare laptop, I used Aptitude all the time, and it was an invaluable piece of bits and bytes.
I think it's really cool too to touch on the differences between apt-get and aptitude, because I'm certainly one of those users that for the longest time I thought they were the same thing. I thought apt-get was aptitude, but to hear now that apt-get might use aptitude, but they are different things is important for new users to hear.
Yeah, it is simpler to use the apt-get feature because you don't, have to search for anything. If you know what you're searching for, you know what the thing is, and you would definitely use excuse me, you would definitely use apt-get to do like basic system maintenance. And then if you wanted to search for a package and you don't want to go to like the software center, you would do the aptitude then.
I think really the power users would use aptitude more than they would use apt. You can do a hell of a lot more, and if you're familiar with it, then you can get a lot done very quickly. And for those people out there that are intermediate or advanced, aptitude is for you on Ubuntu.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's a lot we can cover about a distro and all the different tips and tricks. There's so much, and this even to Ubuntu, there's so much. So I definitely feel like what we've covered here today may not be a lot in depth, but we can always, you can always search for these topics. You can search new topics. If you have things you want us to discuss in the tips and tricks section, put them in the comments below too.
Yeah, definitely. And then we'll be able to address them or elaborate more on them or just discover them.
Yeah, because I'm always still learning myself.
I got one of my friends into Linux, and he brought a few questions towards us. Should we answer those now, guys?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, the first one is, where would be the best place to find themes for Linux, and is it pretty, new user friendly?
I'll jump in on this one. Like I said, noobslab.com. They give you like the best themes and icons there, and you can look at them, look at each one, and see which one sort of you like along your preferences, and it gives you the information to install them. It's mainly sort of geared towards Ubuntu, but you can get a good idea of what you're looking for there.
Yeah. Also with Noobs Lab they have a step-by-step on installing and configuring Conky, which just is a system monitoring app that's right there on your desktop.
So they have camp sample Conky configs and stuff too?
Oh yeah, they have default one, or you can have like a Tron looking one, or you can have like a Gothic one. Yeah, they have some already set up conkeys.
That's pretty cool. I mean, myself personally, I've never been to Noobs Lab, but I always was the guy who went to gnomelook.org or boxlook.org, depending on what user environment I was using. Although I will say for those that the ease of use is a little different. Like you generally download a tarball, you unzip it, you put stuff in the .themes directory in your home folder, and you can open it with your choice GTK themer. But yeah, I feel like maybe this Noobs Lab, is that going to be easier for users to kind of navigate? Or
yeah, it's pretty simple. It's just got different sections in there, Conky themes, stuff like that, icons, and a whole bunch of stuff on there. As the name implies, it's a good place for new users to find different things to theme your Linux box.
That's pretty cool. That might be something I suggest to people in the future instead of doing gnomelook.org or anything like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I usually use GNOME Look now because it's got a lot more themes, and you just download and extract it, and then you can put it in your users/share/themes pathway on your in your file manager.
Oh, see, I always just put it in dot themes, but that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, and also DeviantArt is a good place for if you're wanting to look for more themes or even wallpapers.
Oh, that's a great site. I go there all the time. I mean they have a plethora of stuff there for you to use. I mean, like I said, wallpapers, themes, and everything. And the artists there are excellent. I mean, they make some great stuff.
Yeah, there's some really cool stuff on DeviantArt.
So that is one. So those are a few good places that you can find themes or wallpapers or whatever. The second question that he had is how easy is it to learn Bash scripting or shell scripting or PowerShell to automate your procedures or your queries?
I'll jump in there. We were talking a little bit about this in the pre-show, and that's a hard question to answer as is because it's very vague. I mean, depending on the task you're doing or how complicated you want the task to be, it could be simple, it could be hard. I think it really depends on what exactly you're trying to do.
I'll jump in. We did a whole section on Bash aliases and scripting, just the very, very basics on a previous show, and you can check that out. But I would say that there are a ton of sites that have scripting tutorials that start from the very easy to do down to the crazy, like I would never use this, super advanced, it's way beyond me.
Yeah, there's also a site that I've been, on a lot of my podcasts, they, advertise for. It's called lynda.com, and they have excellent videos on Bash scripting. They go from the very basics on just showing your name all the way down to, oh, hey, I need to find a, monitoring a specific process on there. But if you want the free type of free way, is then there's a lot of good ones on YouTube. But anyone on the internet can make a YouTube video on Bash scripting. So you just have to be, take all the videos with a grain of salt.
The other thing too, what I was thinking of when you guys were mentioning all these different tutorials, is that a lot of people on their GitHub sites will have a lot of their own scripts. So you might actually find a script to do exactly what you want and not have to write any scripting.
Exactly. There's so much, especially in this day in the internet and GitHub and all of those sites that someone probably already wrote a script on what you're looking for. So it is an excellent resource.
Also, I think it's a good idea, like you said, to look at those other scripts. And if you look at other scripts, whether they be basic or immediate or advanced, you can sort of get the gist of what they're doing, and you can sort of tear them apart and try to redo them, and that way you learn. I mean, that's how I learned, by breaking and fixing and breaking and fixing until I got an idea of what the hell I was doing.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely agree there. There's enough information out there where you can chop it up and piece it together the way you want.
Exactly. Okay, then just the very last question that this particular user had is that if you have a dual boot system like Linux Mint or Windows 8 at the same time, is it possible to run Linux on one monitor and Windows 8 on another? If I'm reading the question correctly, I think if you have two OSs on your system at the same time, there's no way to boot both of them at the same time. You would have to use a virtual machine.
Yeah, the VM is definitely what I would. I mean, again, it's if we read the question correctly. I kind of was wondering if it was clear to us what he was trying to ask too. But I definitely feel like the VM would be the only way to do that on two separate monitors.
Yeah, I believe that you have to do that with a VM. That's probably the only way you could do it. But also, there's a mode in VirtualBox where you can run Windows alongside the Linux. I forget the name of the mode. But also you could put, let's say, the VirtualBox in one sort of workspace, and you can have your regular Linux box in another, and maybe you can work it that way. But again, for what reason would you be wanting to do that, running Windows and Linux at the same time?
The other thing too is even if you were able to, I think the performance loss would be so great that it would make it not worth it. I mean, maybe this person wants to play games on Windows but still have their Linux system up and running, and I would have to say that's performance-wise, that's going to give you a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, just dual boot. Save yourself some time. If you have to stay on Windows for certain reasons, just dual boot, and that way you can just use Windows resources appropriately and use Linux sources appropriately too.
Yeah, I am a dual booter, and I definitely know which side I want to go on, depending on what I want to do. So if I have like school projects to do, I go on to the Windows side, and if I have like my Steam games, I go on my Linux side. So again, you just have to know which side the specific object you're wanting to do. You just have to choose which side. But most of the time, you can just stay on the Linux side for the most part.
There was also a time when I had to use Windows for work that I was doing. And one of the nice things is that depending on exactly what your needs are, you might be able to get away with not dual booting and running, like we were saying, in a VM. But it's really all up in the air. It depends on your needs. But again, I feel like if you're going to dual boot. If you're going to run a VM, run a VM. And it's important to know what your needs are.
Yeah, also, I think another way that you can get to know Linux is when I first started using Linux, I was still using Windows, but I would run a whole bunch of other distributions in a VM and just test them out to find what I'm looking for. And that's another way of you can run Linux and Windows at the exact same time. So I think just having a virtual machine is the best way of going around this.
I hope that for this user, we've been able to answer some of the questions to the best of our ability. And also, maybe you have other questions that you want to ask in the future, or, other people might want to ask, and feel free to let us know.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys have anything that you need clarification on, please leave a message down in the comments or come to the Linux Distro Community forums and ask them there. We have a bunch of people in all types of expertise that will be able to help you with whatever you're looking for.
Yeah, and even you can find us on Linux Distro Community on IRC. But I feel like there's so much with some of these questions, like it's things that I don't know and I have to go learn. So I definitely feel like it's beneficial to definitely get these questions out there, and so we can take a look at them.
Exactly. Plus, it just brings us another segment in our show to makes it even better than before.
Yeah, and I also think all three of us are going down different Linux rabbit holes, and so our experiences are different, and so I think between that, all three of us have a lot to offer.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is talking, one of the things that I first started when using Linux is all the differences between the different text editors. There's, Nano, Vim, Emacs, and then there's LeafPad and gedit and a whole bunch of stuff. So I thought it'd be a good idea to, get some clarity between those.
Definitely. I have not used much Emacs. By much, I mean I haven't never even installed Emacs. But I'm a little bit familiar with Vim and Nano, and I think that Emacs, from what I hear, can do so many different things. I don't know if you've used Emacs, Kleptos, at all, or?
Never in my entire life have I used Emacs before, but Aki Base over there it lives in Emacs, and so does Richard Stallman.
Yeah, I also one of the users, Gentoo Brony, he definitely uses Emacs, and he gave me a little description on what it can do. You can have do videos in it. You can have an IRC client. You can do a whole bunch of stuff right there in Emacs.
I think it is kind of funny too. I've heard web browsers out of Emacs, it's its own whole system just closed into a text editor.
Yeah. I used Emacs for maybe a weekend. I just did just the basic stuff to edit my configuration files, so I didn't really get into the juicy part of Emacs.
What did you have a feeling since you've used Emacs even briefly? I mean, I know that when I first started using like VI, I didn't know how to type in text, but is it a little bit more natural with Emacs, just being able to enter text and cut and paste and stuff?
I didn't do the cut and paste, but yeah, you can, in like Vim or VI, you have to go into insert mode. You don't have to do that in Emacs. You can just type it and then save it as right there and then. So you don't have to, escape, get out of insert mode and then save it. So that's a definitely benefit on the Emacs part.
Yeah, one thing, I mean, speaking of insert mode on Vim, uh, there's so many plugins for Vim. One of my favorites is either what used to be Powerline. I like Airline. Pretty much the same thing, a couple of different feature differences. But the amount of things that you can shove into Vim, and again with Emacs, it's the same thing. There's a ton of room for plugins on both of these. But I definitely feel like Vim is one of the places I called home. So I'm very used to pressing Escape, then hitting I and typing my text or R for replace or whatever.
Yeah, I was a Nano guy up until maybe a few months ago. Nano is like very simple. You just type it in and you just do a Control X to exit, save your file, and that's it. It was nice and simple. I think it followed, the keep it simple, stupid philosophy. But ever since, learning Vim, I definitely use Vim whenever I can.
As for me, I've used Vim in the past. On Unix, I used to use Pico, and then Pico sort of merged into Nano later on. But Vim, get your cheat sheets for Vim out, okay, newbies, because you're gonna need those cheat sheets. And after you get cheat sheets for a while and you use them, you'll get adjusted to Vim. And Vim is excellent. Vim is just like Vim and Emacs are just baked into the Linux system, and you just use them as you want to use them. My favorite text editor right now is Medit. It's kind of sort of like the sister of gedit, but a bit better these days. But I like to say that for those people who are using Vim, there are some great add-ons and extensions for Firefox and Chromium. If you use Vim, like on Firefox, they have Pentadactyl, a great add-on for you Vim users out there, and for Chromium, you can use something called Vimium, and so you can get all your Vim action right there on your browser too.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say about Vim is like some of the different features, like you can set line numbers on Vim. But I'm a weird one. Like when I'm editing stuff like with sudo commands and I'm sudoing into a file, I'll actually use Nano just because I know that in my own experience I might make a mistake with Vim and write a file. I don't know. It's just I find that when I'm actually doing like administrative tasks, I like to separate my text editors, which is another great thing. You can use multiple text editors.
Yeah, if I don't want to go into the, terminal to edit a config file, or say I have like a specific icon I want to use in my i3 configuration, then I would, go into gedit where it's just like a notepad on Windows. It's very familiar, and you can also have different syntax on there and line numbers also. So I feel at home also in gedit if I want like a GUI text editor.
And also on KDE is a great text editor called Kate. Kate is almost overkill, but it's excellent. It's an excellent text editor. Does a lot.
Yeah, and the other thing too, for GUI stuff, you might notice that Vim is generally a terminal text editor, but there's also gvim. So there's just a million spins on text editors. More Scribes is another one we haven't talked about, which is awesome. I used Scribes for a long time.
I used Sublime, which is another good one. It has, different syntax. So if you do write in code like Ruby, C, C++, C Sharp, or even Java, you can have it, look like any other text editor or like any other IDE.
For Vim, the GUI wise, there's a great application called Cream, and it takes all the features of Vim and adds them in the GUI and options. And so a lot of stuff that people do as far as in commands in Vim, you can do it in a GUI wise, but it has all those same options, which is pretty awesome for newbies. It's called Cream.
But again, we can talk like a whole show just based off of, text editors and this and that. So let's, since we've been gone, there was interesting news on the Debian front. It looks like 2 different developers left Debian.
Okay, here's really the problem. It's that, the whole voting for systemd, Debian is sort of a bureaucratic process, and which is really good for something like Debian to work things out. But they voted for systemd, and now there's one guy leaves because of peer pressure as far as systemd. They're forking systemd, and other people are leaving for other reasons that are related to systemd, and so. To me, if it's a bureaucratic process and people voted for systemd and they're in the majority, then in that bureaucratic process, you're supposed to just accept that and move on. I have my opinions about systemd, but yet I love systemd. I learn more and more and more about it, and the more I learn, the better it is for me. But I think that people have sort of jumped on the systemd bandwagon and rode it out like a rented mule, and it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad because it's really great. I understand that people have sort of mixed feelings about systemd and involving the sort of Unix philosophy and really the sort of arch philosophy of keeping it simple, but it's great. And as far as people leaving systemd, I think it's a lot of sort of peer pressure and piling on, and then you have journalists out there with a lot of hyperbole and sort of pushing systemd apocalypse for Debian. And it sort of creates headlines, and yet it sort of creates sort of a sort of false chaos for other people that are inside the Debian system. And it's really sad, and I think that people should do what they want to do. And if you voted for it or you voted against it in their majority, just go with it. Debian's way too precious for you to be tinkering around with the system as is. I'm already pissed off.
The thing too, also, about systemd, I remember when Arch migrated away from System 5 into systemd, there was a lot of the same turmoil of like, oh, this is against the Unix way and stuff. And I heard a lot of arguments on both sides. The sad news is that even though both arguments have their points, is that we jump on this bandwagon of either, yay or nay. And instead of, like you were saying, just sitting back and being like, this is where we're at. I love this system. I love what we're doing. Let's run with it, because it's still free and open source software. It just may not be POSIX compliant. But nowadays, nothing's gonna stay the same forever.
Also, I think as far as systemd goes, I'm gonna be very honest here, brutally honest. I think systemd is the best thing for Linux right now. I think that it's sort of I can also say that it's sort of far ahead of Linux as it is, and waiting for the rest of Linux to catch up to it. And if we're going to compete with Windows, we're going to compete with Mac, and we're going to compete with Chromebooks, I think systemd is essential. Just by the way that you can roll it out on Linux systems is very easy. And the system, it has so much involved in it, and I think that's what people get upset with as far as systemd, with it, the journal system and everything else, and syslog. But it's great, and it's the future, and just live with it. Systemd.
There's always sad news around systemd, man. Somebody's always upset about it. Somebody always wants it. And I think that one thing we should note, too, is that if all these different distributions are migrating to systemd, we're not all fools. There's something good about systemd that we're missing out on if we're not using it.
And also, there's options. There's options, for God's sakes. Okay? If you don't like systemd, then you can use something else on Debian. Okay? There's options. You can do that. But, it's like people have this sort of mentality of, I'm going to take my little red wagon, I'm going to go home. And it's really more about the community than it's really about systemd. Systemd is sort of small in the process of Linux in general. When it comes down to the community, and it's really community focused. That's the great thing about Linux in general, the community. And so forget about your your sort of elitist habits of looking down upon different software. It's all freaking open source software, man. Get on the bandwagon.
Yeah, we could definitely go around the table on this one for an hour or two.
Yeah, it's Linux users just can't let a few things go, or like something changes and like all hell breaks loose. I don't understand it. It's just I like the change part, the options. Might as well embrace everything that you can. If you don't like systemd, fine, don't go on to a distribution that doesn't have systemd. But times are going to be changing, and might as well just roll with the tide.
I was.
The other thing that kleptos was saying too is you can choose. You can install OpenRC if you want. I mean, there are options.
I was one of those Linux curmudgeons years ago in my young and dumb days, where when everything was terminal, everything was console. I was like, what's all these GUI applications? It's ruining Linux. It's Fisher-Price software. And I was that curmudgeon, man, years and years ago. And now I love it. I'm in the terminal probably 50% of the time, and I'm in GUI 50% of the time, and I'm just loving it, man. We have to sort of adapt to the changing times and sort of embrace it.
Okay, again, we can talk about this for another 2 or 3 podcasts for all we want. We could talk about this all day, but you guys, you moved over to OpenSUSE, right, Morning?
Really? Oh yeah, I did. I am running OpenSUSE. I didn't even notice. Yeah, I mean, I had some disagreements with my Arch box, and I was thinking about doing nuke and pave, and when I did, I had to go to work a lot last week. I was working really way too much, so I didn't have time to set up an Arch machine, but I wanted my computer to not be collecting dust, so I went for an out-of-the-box experience, and I went with one that I've always tried to recommend to Linux users because of how awesome it is. I went to OpenSUSE, and I've been on there for a little bit. I made a commitment to be on here for at least 6 months.
That's really awesome that you can, move from one machine to the next. But do you guys want to review OpenSUSE just a little bit?
Oh, hell yeah. I've been using OpenSUSE for many years in the past, and I liked it. It was sort of a love-hate relationship. I loved it, but yet certain little things were bothering me, and the software really wasn't available for me for some software. But things have changed, man, and 12.3 is awesome sauce. And I'm gonna let you take it away first, Morning, and I'll come up afterwards.
All right. So I mean, coming from somebody, I've been dealing with Arch, so of course I've been dealing with terminals and consoles from the very beginning of an installed system. So to come over here to OpenSUSE, where I throw in the DVD and I hit install and turn on my repositories and run with it, and then out of the box I have a complete system that runs, it needs some work, needs some tweaking, but I found that there were a lot of options. I really was glad to have the familiar systemd experience on OpenSUSE. The repositories were really easy to navigate. One thing I noticed which was really cool was there's the Pac-Man repository in OpenSUSE, because at first I had no clue. I hadn't done it in so long. It was like, all right, where do I find my different applications that aren't in the main repos? And the Pac-Man repo is huge. Like, it's huge. So I thought that was really, really cool. Plus the one-click installs. There's Tumbleweed, which I may move over to on another machine. It's there's no shortage of packages, and it really, I don't know if you want to add anything, kleptos, but I feel like it really competes with Arch in the AUR.
It does. Yeah, okay. Before I talk about the whole review thing, OpenSUSE has something called the Open Build Service, and they make a lot of packages, and they actually port those packages over to Fedora. They port them over to Arch and everything else, and that is very close to AUR. It's not as great as AUR is, but it's damn close, and it's got potential, and it's great. But to begin, here's my pros. Okay, as OpenSUSE goes, the pros. Zypper is great and extremely functional. Most things you can do in the YAS software / repository tools, you can do in Zypper, and the terminal is great. And when you install software updates, your software OpenSUSE has these great scripts that make you aware of any conflicts within the system or the software, and let you know if any processes are interfering with the update. You can do like Zypper PS and see what processes are running that you've already updated, so you can see maybe what you need to sort of stop or start, whatever have you. And the software selection at software.opensuse.org is just getting better and better. Oh my god, I'm loving it. And I've only had trouble finding like rare themes that I've used all the times. And the OpenSUSE build service is just killer. I mean, if you have a login, you can install the OSC software in Zypper, and you can search the OpenSUSE build service from your terminal and just grab a bunch of RPMs and install them. It's great. Okay, YAST. Oh my god, YAST has everything you ever wanted. And especially for newbies who need to get some GUI tools going on before they get used to doing things in the terminal. Through YAST, especially the system config, I think, program module, you can choose your display manager, your desktop environment / window manager that you want to load on boot. So I use Mate, and I open that up and I say, okay, it says, what do you want to use as far as the desktop environment? I say Mate, it automatically loads it on boot. It's great. Okay, I don't want to use GVM. I want to use Light DM. And you put that in there, in the GUI, and it works. It just works. It just works. That's all I gotta say. But also, YAST has a killer ButterFS snapper interface for restoring files and folders and checking to see what's changed on your machine. And the butter here, the real butter, the gorgeous, wonderful, loving butter here, which is great, is that you can go boot into Grub, and you can boot into a ButterFS snapshot from the Grub menu, and then with one command, let's say you messed up something and it's not working right, you go boot up a ButterFS snapshot, let's say an hour ago, and then with one command you can roll that all back the way it was before. And I've had almost zero issues in OpenSUSE. It's just rock solid and feature rich. It has everything you can ever want, and it's secure. Now the cons. I only got a few cons here. The one-click installer is kind of too much of a process. One-click installer has like way too many clicks, and it's just a little bit too much. But they could tweak that. It's great. My only real problem is there's too many damn times I have to type in my root password. If I run a YAS program and close that program, open another YAS program, I've got to type in my root password again. Okay, it's ridiculous. It's security. And there's almost security overkill in OpenSUSE. But of course, that can be a plus, as AppArmor is built in, along with other YAS hardening tools. And with AppArmor built into OpenSUSE, you go look at the YAS AppArmor module, and it lists a bunch of services and processes that are using AppArmor. That way, almost all of your clients involving network utilities are using AppArmor, so you know they're secure. They're so much secure that I was using DNS Mask the other day, and I was trying to use this trust-anchor config file, but AppArmor did not have that as allowable, and so I had to go and add that. And so it's super secure, rock solid, and I'm loving it, and I'm going to stick here forever.
One thing I'll say too, since we're doing pros and cons, I guess, one of the downsides I really noticed was in Arch, I was really used to be able to type in the command. I actually put that in for Irish in the pre-show to remove all my orphan packages. That didn't work quite the same with SUSE. I ended up breaking my system and had to reinstall. So I definitely feel like that was one thing where, it's just something I'm used to. There's a lot of distros where removing orphan packages can get messy. It was a bit of a bummer to find out this is one of them. But what that means is I just have to pay attention when I'm installing to when I'm removing software specifically to clear out my dependencies at that time.
Okay, here's the deal with orphan packages. The problem there is that let's say you just find some rare theme and you install the RPM. they classify that as an orphan package. So it's a system package. And so if you go clear out all of your orphan packages that you might have installed via RPM, then you're clearing all those out, and you might clear out some good system stuff, and then it breaks. And so, yeah, I see your issue there. You have to sort of be particular and sort of pick ones that you know that you did install manually.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, and it's not a bad thing. Again, it just means a little more work for me. I only did it once. I'm only going to do it once. It was just because I was used to Arch, where I could just remove all the orphan packages in a safe manner. But that was definitely a learning experience for me, and it made me laugh and call myself a newbie. One of the really good things that I've experienced was being one of those people that likes to wear a tinfoil hat when I play at my computer. There was a lot of like security stuff that you were talking about, and it works out of the box. There's a lot of stuff in the one-click installer or the different RPM or the different repos that I found that I could make a system with all the same features I had on Arch work with OpenSUSE. So I definitely don't feel like I'm missing out on something. Sometimes I go to a distro and my only option is to install everything from source. I didn't have to do that in OpenSUSE. And again, that just brings up the repositories and stuff. I'm also glad that like today, I'm not a big fan of Network Manager. So I went to go install YCD, and it took care of all the systemd units and stuff for me. I mean, lazy. Yeah, I was surprised that I didn't have to do it. I'm used to having to change all my config files myself. So there is some ease of use pros that I really think are worth mentioning.
Yeah, I think I was on, OpenSUSE just for about a week, a little bit ago, and like kleptos said, the one-click install, that's a little false advertising because it's not just one click. It's like 5 or 6 clicks, and it's just wish that was just a little bit better, but it seems like you guys are enjoying it for sure.
You're really bent out about 5 clicks, huh?
Roughly, I wasn't keeping count or anything.
Yeah, I definitely feel like coming from Arch to OpenSUSE. I mean, again, my reasons were because of just some silly issues with Arch, and when it came time to re-roll, I didn't have time. I didn't have time during that work week to repave and renuke, and it was actually a really easy experience. I had the whole machine up and running in about 3 hours, and that's definitely worth noting. I mean, and plus with all the other pros like the repository size, the one-click installer, AppArmor, Yast. I mean, it's a great system, and it's one I'll stick with for 6 months, if not a little longer.
Yeah, there's what type of user do you think OpenSUSE is? Like Arch users are like in the camp of quote unquote advanced users. Same thing with Gentoo, and like Fedora users are like ones are in the like an IT geek type of person. What do you think OpenSUSE falls under?
Well, being somebody who came from Arch, where there is some, stigma about if you use Arch. I told somebody in my real life that I used Arch, and they go, "Oh, you're a Linux pro." Well, no. I mean, I feel like I'm required to read up everything on Arch and learn everything. So there is some definite belief that there's these stigmas that go along with different distros. One thing I'll say about OpenSUSE, and I think it's good from for the advanced user all the way to the new user, and really anything in between. I think if you want an out-of-the-box experience, it was one that I did a review on a long time ago and said this is a great distro. And now that I'm using it and have been using it as my main system for over a week now, I mean, yeah, it lives up to everything that it should. It's a great system from the newbie to the advanced user.
Do you find like you're learning more stuff as you go along, more so than you did with Arch?
No, I don't feel like I'm learning anything, but then again, I'm playing on the safe side of the water, I just want my machine to do the things that it did on Arch. So it's nothing, there's no new material right now. Again, the orphan package thing, I had to learn that it's not going to look at orphans the same way it does on Arch. But I also feel like I was able to take a lot of my knowledge from Arch and adjust certain things in OpenSUSE that maybe a newer user might not. But they're trivial things. I feel like Linux is Linux, and if I learn something in one place, I can usually apply it in another.
Yeah, exactly. And plus, they have Tumbleweed, which is the rolling release part of OpenSUSE, and I was on it when I was on OpenSUSE for about that week, and it is definitely a fantastic feature.
Yeah, I feel like Tumbleweed is something that I'm going to put OpenSUSE on the new machine that's being shipped to me. I will probably put OpenSUSE Tumbleweed on there and give it a test out, and then maybe if I like Tumbleweed, I might move this machine over to Tumbleweed, but we'll see.
Anything else you want to say about it, Morning?
No, I think that about covers it. I know that there's a lot to it. I'll keep learning new stuff. If anything comes up that I need to bring up to that I learned or whatnot, we can always do a follow-up segment some other time, and when it's closer, like 3 or 4 months, and I'm still stuck here, see how I feel then.
Yeah, definitely we will let you guys know where Kleptos and Morning sit on the whole OpenSUSE in the following podcast. But yeah, I'm glad you guys are happy with your system and you're not having too much trouble.
So yeah, that kind of covers it for the whole show today. Thanks Irish and Kleptos for being around. Thank me because I did it too. Woohoo! So if you want to actually leave some comments about things you want to see in the future, leave it in the comments below. If you like the video, press the like button. If you actually want to hear more of these videos, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to check us out at www.linuxdistrocommunity.com. You can hit us on IRC at Freenode at Linux Distro Community. You can always check us out on Mumble. You can find that information on ldc.com or linuxdistrocommunity.com. Here we go, abbreviating stuff. And other than that, we will see you guys next time, and have a good day.
See ya.